Today's video is sponsored by Omaze. For a chance to win a 20K gaming setup and support some great causes, go to omaze.com/Kenson. This has been a big year for gaming tech. Obviously, something that we focused on a lot on this channel is the release of the brand new next-gen systems, the PS5 and Xbox Series X, but something else that's been happening at the same time is that on the PC gaming side of things, there's been a number of new GPUs released that have a major noticeable increase in power compared to previous cards. Now, one of the big things about comparing PC gaming to console gaming is the fact that with a console, all the systems have basically the same specs. There are sometimes revisions that happen over time with small little changes here and there, but ultimately we're working with the same GPU, CPU, so on and so forth. But with a PC, you can be changing out all kinds of different parts leading to very different final results. And something I thought would be kind of an interesting thing to talk about isn't necessarily trying to do a budget PC that is the same price as a console at $500, but instead take a look at how the PS5 and Xbox Series X, both going for $500, stack up compared to a PC making use of a GPU that by itself goes for that same price. So we are taking a look at the RTX 3070 versus PS5 and Xbox Series X. Now, obviously, we are going to be seeing some differences in performance here because we are talking about a GPU that by itself costs as much as these next-gen systems, but I think what's a really important thing to look at here is what you are getting at what value. In particular, how much performance you're getting out of a pre-built $500 gaming console as compared to doing a full PC build based around this GPU. If you've watched my channel at all before, you know that this is a generally console-focused gaming atmosphere. But something that I have touched on a couple times before here and there in other videos is that I really am not a pure console player. I do play stuff on PC as well, kind of like how I jump around the various consoles with the Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. I also have games that, to me personally, make sense to play on PC. A really good example, actually, for something that's coming out very soon is Cyberpunk 2077 is something that, for me, just makes sense to play on a PC. I like the idea of playing on a keyboard and mouse. Playing at a desk setup just makes more sense to me with that one. It's just the kind of game that, to me, makes sense on that platform. And so when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, I'm really not trying to give you guys the impression here that I think, oh, consoles are just the de facto way you should play, or oh, PC is so much better than console. That's really not the takeaway I want anyone to have here. I think both methods are different that serve different specific purposes, and I really want to take a look at these differences in performance to really highlight what I think is really the true individual strength of each one and why one makes more sense for someone over the other. Now, for the build we used with our GPU, obviously, again, RTX 3070 as far as the card goes. For the CPU, we're making use of an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. We've got 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD that we'll be loading up all of our games on. Something I think is worth clarifying too right now is the kind of difference in goals with the GPU we're using versus consoles. Obviously, the big focus of Xbox Series X and PS5 has been on making 4K the kind of new standard for what all games are running at. Some games are running at a lower resolution with upscaling, others give you the option to play at a lower resolution in exchange for frame rate. In the case of the 3070, it can run 4K and is what we're going to be pushing it to do for a lot of stuff, so we can have that kind of one-to-one comparison with how things are running on console. But really, the 3070 is aimed at being more of a 1440 1080p style kind of card, and then you would pay more if you want to get into the kind of more 4K intentional ones. But the main point we're trying to see here is, again, this GPU at this price, how is it all stacking up in comparison? With the GPU included, the total price of this build roughly comes out to about $1,500, so we're really looking at, again, 3 times the price of these popular gaming systems. Which, speaking of our PC build, now would be a really good time to talk about what you could win from today's sponsor, Omaze. In today's video, we're using a pretty powerful build, but ultimately one that is still pretty modest in design. But imagine what you could do with $20,000 to build your ultimate PC setup, because that is the prize that Omaze is giving away right now, while also helping out some great charities. Donate $10 and you're entered for the chance to win $20,000 you can use to build up your ultimate PC gaming setup. That's not just for the PC itself, but for a desk, a gaming chair, multiple monitors, some great accessories and peripherals. There is so much stuff. That is way more than enough funds to build out your dream gaming setup. And with the kind of year we've had for game releases, there's a lot of great stuff to dive into and start playing. Every donation supports the Bungie Foundation, who helps out children in hospitals with their iPads for Kids program, a way to help support and reduce distress in child patients through entertainment. Donations also support Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, who raises funds for 170 children's hospitals that support the health of 10 million kids each year across the US and Canada. For a chance to win that 20K gaming setup and help support these great causes, go to omaze.com/Kenson. Okay, so what did all of our testing show as far as performance differences between these consoles and a gaming PC go? Well, honestly, it varies a lot based on an individual game-by-game basis, and there are some very special situations for some of these that can make it a little more interesting and weird, and I really want to talk about what some of these circumstances are and why we're seeing some of these differences. To begin with, let's talk about a game that I think is one of the more straightforward comparisons with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This is a game that just came out a month ago. It is optimized for next-gen systems and has been released on PC as well, so I think it gives us one of the kind of better ideas of how something being released simultaneously for all these platforms can perform. And what we're seeing here is that the PC version of the game does indeed run quite a bit better with the build we're using. Compared to the 4K modes on console, those are locked at 30 frames, whereas on PC playing at 4K, we're able to see a performance of 45 frames per second. It's also worth noting that the console versions do offer a performance mode that aims for 60 FPS by having a dynamic resolution scaling that targets 1440p resolution but will drop well below it pretty often, whereas on PC we can play it at 1440, keeping that resolution all the time while still hitting an average 66 frames, which is a pretty noticeable gap in terms of raw performance. What is a really interesting takeaway about this, though, is that while the PC is obviously the strongest performer here, what you're getting for spending 3 times as much isn't necessarily that big of a leap. Yes, better, for sure, especially when you want to be able to have 4K with a higher frame rate as well. But on consoles, you're still able to get a good-looking resolution that looks close to 4K thanks to upscaling and have that 60 frames, albeit with some screen tearing if you're not using a TV or monitor that supports FreeSync, but ultimately still giving you that very nice-looking smooth frame rate with good-looking visuals. As another example, Rainbow Six Siege just got a next-generation optimization patch, giving us 120 frames per second while playing at 4K with dynamic resolution scaling, so it's not maintaining a solid 4K the entire time, whereas on PC, we're playing at 4K where it's set that way, and seeing an average frame rate of around 137 FPS. So again, there is a leading gap in terms of what the PC is able to do compared to next-gen consoles. And this to me has always been kind of the really big debate when it comes to people talking about, building a PC versus just buying a gaming console. It's the concept of diminishing returns. At the end of the day, a PC is always going to get you the absolute best performance possible if you put enough money and resources into it. But as far as something that's just going to be able to play the game at a serviceable level, this also of course varies heavily based on a game-by-game basis and what kind of work devs put into optimization, but ultimately, console as far as the dollar investment goes is going to be getting you a good running experience, with the simplicity of something that you take out of the box, hook up, and you're good to go. Now the thing is, this is a situation where again, it's a game that is being released on all three, and I think when we're talking about the general concept of, using a PC for gaming versus playing on console, there's other more specific situations we need to deal with, because not everything is optimized for all platforms. For instance, take a look at backwards compatible games. There are titles that came out on previous gen consoles that if you play them on a current gen system, isn't going to really see any kind of big improvements despite the noticeable gap in power, whereas on a PC, things are designed in such a way that you can continue to upgrade and make the game look even better. For instance, let's take a look at Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This is a game that is a backwards compatible title for Xbox Series X and PS5 that doesn't really benefit from their improved performance. Because the game is locked at 30 FPS for its 4K mode, that means that for console, that's all you're gonna get. Whereas on PC, whereas we don't have that lock, we're able to play at 4K while also having better graphics enabled, hitting almost 60 frames per second. It's also worth noting that the PC version also offers a ray tracing option, so you can play 4K ray traced and still get just over 30 frames, while again, console, you're stuck at 30, either way, no ray tracing. There are other times though where this isn't necessarily the case. A really good example being Monster Hunter World, which I think is one of the best showcases of a game that, thanks to using uncapped frame rates, can really benefit from a modern day system. See, on the console version of Monster Hunter World, there's a couple different ways the game can be played, and the one in particular that we're really talking about here is the 4K mode. Now on Xbox One and PS4, the 4K mode was something that, pushed for native 4K resolution at the expense of the game's frame rate, but it still ran the game's frame rate uncapped. So while an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro would run this particular method at only hitting, high 20s in frame rates, running this same version of the game on an Xbox Series X or a PS5 is hitting a very good looking smooth 60. Now again, with settings that match a little more appropriately, because the 4K native version of Monster Hunter on console is not using highest graphics settings, turning those down on the PC while still aiming for 4K is getting us a better frame rate. But the kind of gap we're seeing here isn't the kind of significant thing that we were seeing with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Because again, while this is a game being run in backwards compatibility mode, it's developed in such a way that it is able to take advantage of the improved tech inside next-gen systems. Now, not all backwards compatible games are going to be stuck this way. Many are planned to get next generation upgrades. For instance, Doom Eternal at 4K with max settings on our PC build hits 112 FPS, while consoles are currently stuck at a 60 FPS max because they are running the previous gen versions. There are, however, already upcoming patches announced for these. We don't know the specifics just yet, but it's very likely we'll see either better visuals added to the next gen versions, or possibly even opening up the frame rate, getting us that 120 FPS on console. One of the main reasons I really want to talk about these backwards compatibility titles and how they work with next-gen systems versus how their PC equivalents perform is kind of adding on to that point earlier I was making about how with PC, diminishing returns, being able to get the best performance possible while needing to spend more money. Meanwhile, systems, very simple. There's also the aspect of how devs approach the situation. There are some devs where ultimately they're going to end up heavily favoring developing for one platform or another. There are going to be those games where they're able to take full advantage of the specs on a PC and allow you to hit whole new levels, and there's other games where they really are designed for console in mind. And PC might be able to give you a little bit extra edge here and there, but ultimately the difference is not nearly what it potentially could be. Another really good weird example of this, for instance, would be another game from Capcom with Devil May Cry 5. This is a game that got a special edition re-release for Xbox Series X and PS5, offering all kinds of new enhancements thanks to the improved tech, including the addition of ray tracing support. Meanwhile, the PC version of Devil May Cry, guess what? Doesn't get it. Ray tracing is in Devil May Cry 5 for next-gen consoles. It is the same game otherwise, but for PC, you're just simply stuck without that, which is a very odd decision. You're getting these kind of visuals and things on the PS5 and Xbox Series X that look better thanks to the ability to turn this option on, and yet potentially on PC things could get even better, but that's not going to be an option because, well, the dev said so. Really, part of the reason I wanted to make this video wasn't just to be able to do a strict, oh, look, how these games run on here versus how they run on here, but honestly, this is all stuff that's kind of swirled in my mind for a long time, because I always see these giant arguments about why PC is the de facto place people should play games or why consoles are so much better, and the thing is, at the end of the day, they're just different. Much like how there are games that are exclusive to one platform or another, there are games that are optimized better for one platform or another. And yes, ultimately, PC can still get you the best performance possible if you sink enough money and resources into it, but again, that concept of diminishing returns. You're spending more and more and more to hit those levels. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you like having a super powerful gaming rig, more power to you. Literally. But for other people, there is something very appealing about the idea of buying a system at a flat price that has a guaranteed method of running these games with a frame rate and resolution that is sufficient enough for them to still have fun and play the game, and still looking great while we're at it, especially right now when we're experiencing this kind of next-gen leap. That honestly offer a kind of performance that, while not as good as a high-end PC, is a lot better than what you'd be able to accomplish at the same price. We're talking about systems that are running games at 4K 30, even 4K 60 in some instances, other times relying on upscaling techniques, also including features like ray tracing at a $500 price point. That is crazy. So let people have fun with where they play their games, whether that's on a console, whether that's on a handheld, whether that's on an older system, or on a high-power gaming rig. What matters is you found the platform that fits for you, and you have fun playing on it. That's it, I'm done getting off my high horse, and I'm just gonna go play some more games, probably Cyberpunk in a day, tomorrow, depending on when this goes live. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to not miss out on more content, and don't forget to check out the link down below for omaze.com/Kenson to get your chance to win a $20,000 gaming setup and help out some great causes at the same time.